For it. But you suppose they can make it a little bit smaller so it's more detailed. So
Hi guys, not hearing any of the audio.
Product development in the food and drink industry is thriving. Food labeling regulations play a key role in bringing safe products to market, but complying with these regulations is easy to get wrong, the consequences of which could cost someone's life. Global food regulatory experts Ashbury helps protect consumers and brands by making food labeling compliance straightforward. Zoe Jordan, CEO, and Bridget McKevitt, Head of Regulatory Affairs, join me now. Thank you for joining me. Zoe, why is labeling compliance so important, and at what part of a product's development should it be considered?
Chris, labeling compliance is so important, and the reason why is because as a consumer, you use the food labeling information to make the decisions about purchasing that product for you to eat. It should be considered right at the very start of the product development process, when as a food manufacturer, you're thinking about the product formulation, the ingredients you might use in that product, all the way through the manufacturing process, through to production, through to producing the label and what claims you might want to put onto that label. You should be considering food compliance and regulation right at the very start, because if you don't do that, it could cost you quite a lot of money and a lot of time to fix those mistakes at the end of the product development process.
Bridget, what is the risk of not considering compliance right at the very beginning?
I think the most important risk we need to consider is that to the consumers. So we don't want to sell food that's not safe for consumers to enjoy. But also as a business, you don't want to be selling products that are not compliant. You might have to recall the product, which will cost you money. You may have financial implications from the people that you've committed to sell your product to, the retailers. Empty shelves, not great for anyone. And you might have to write off the product as well. So hopefully you won't get to that point. Hopefully you can protect your brand, protect your business, and protect consumers, and get it right from the beginning.
Food export is a huge opportunity for brands, but why does internationalization come with its own set of compliance challenges?
Exporting products overseas is a great opportunity, but it's not as simple as just translating the information on the label to the country that you want to export it to. Every market's going to have its own rules and regulations that you need to know about. You need to understand if the ingredients that you're using can be used in those countries. It's really important to get the name of the product right. So, for example, pigs and blankets, which we love here in Britain and the UK, would not translate very well if you were selling that product in France. You'd need to change the name to cocktail sausages wrapped in bacon. So just one example of the importance of the considerations you need before exporting to other countries.
So Zoe, when it comes to food safety, product labeling is more important now than ever.
Oh, it so is. Allergens, food intolerances, they're definitely on the increase. And there's been some real high-profile cases, such as the Natasha's Law in the UK, that have led to some positive developments in the labelling of allergens on food products, which is a great development in the world of food labelling. But food safety is more than just allergens. And there's other information that has to go onto the product label that supports the consumer to make good choices when they're either choosing the food or preparing the food and cooking the food. So things such as the storage instructions, things such as the cooking instructions, it's really important for the food manufacturer to get those right so that as a consumer prepares the food, that you know that you're preparing that food safely for consumption.
Information is obviously crucial, but can we say too much? Can a product tell you too much?
Possibly. I mean, I think we as consumers are looking for more and more information about the foods that we want to buy. But the mandatory parts of a food label kind of fight for space with some of the marketing elements. So it's becoming more crowded. What we're seeing is a move to providing information offline, so not on the label, but perhaps via QR code that consumers can scan, check and see if it's a product they want to buy and then buy it.
So to both of you, considering the complicated landscape that the food and drink industry is facing, what's your main advice to brands?
It is a really complicated landscape. There's more and more regulation that is impacting businesses. Things like sustainability is up and coming. But then there's sort of other factors that we may not realise impact our food labels and the products. So conflicts around the world may impact on the ingredient supply. Obviously, when the UK came out of Europe, Brexit, there's lots of regulatory changes from there as well. So it's a lot more complex than it was in the past. And it's really difficult for one business to navigate that by themselves. So our advice would be to work with your trade associations, look at your network, look at people like ourselves, Ashbury, to see how we can help you get it right first time.
The UK in particular has a really strong history of producing high quality, compliant food for sale in the UK and around the world. And we're a nation that wants to continue to do that. Compliance is such an important part of maintaining that position of producing and selling high quality food that's safe for consumers to eat. So get the compliance right at the early stages of the product development process, and you can be sure that you will be launching products that meet those world-leading global standards.
Which is what everybody wants, I'm sure. Well, Zoe Jordan, Bridget McKevitt, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. I thank you for joining us. We are very happy to see so many of you with us today. I am Ellis James Sling, and I'm pleased to be your moderator for today's Bureau of Standards Jamaica online awareness session. It's all in the label. Each year, the Bureau of Standards Jamaica coordinates and presents several sessions, all designed to provide information on standards and related areas of their application. This session today has been specifically designed for food processors, importers of food items, distributors, retailers, well, I should say pre-packaged food items, distributors, retailers, and of course, for stakeholders for whom proper labeling is not just a regulatory requirement, but a key factor in consumer trust, product compliance, and market access. We will be taking a deep dive into the essential requirements for food labels, optional elements that add value, and the specific labeling standards for packaged water and for milk products. The Bureau of Standards Jamaica plays a critical role in ensuring that food products on the Jamaican market meet national standards and, to a lesser degree, international labeling standards. Today's session will provide clarity on what is mandatory across prepackaged goods, what is recommended, and how to ensure compliance to avoid regulatory challenges. Before we get started, let me share a few guidelines. We want to ensure a smooth and productive session, and so we invite you to mute your microphone. Keep your microphone muted unless you're invited to speak or you're making a presentation. Of course, you know that this just cuts back on the noise and ensures that persons have a free activity, free of disturbance. We ask you to use the chat for questions. If you have a question during a presentation, drop it in the chat. We will address them during the question and answer session. We do encourage discussion, but please be professional and respectful in your comments and questions. We would like to avoid disruptions, and we ask that you don't share your screen unless you're presenting, and use reaction emojis excessively. Do not use reaction emojis excessively. Thank you so very much. Before we go into the meat of the presentation, we will invite Mrs. Paulette Bailey to have an opening activity.
Good morning, everyone. As you heard, I'm Paulette Bailey from the Packaging Non-Metallic and Furniture branch. It's a pleasure to be here this morning, and I want to thank all of you for being here. And we do hope that this workshop today will add significant value to your business. Now, I'll just be sharing with you an outline of what to expect in our presentation this morning. Now, just looking at the presentation, coming up, we'll have our icebreaker. And Mr. Leng, this will be an opportunity for a few persons to win a few prizes maybe. And then we'll just give you a little overview on the cost of improper labeling. And then we'll look at some standards that will be used. Then we'll have individual presentations on general labeling requirements, optional labeling requirements, and labeling requirements for some specific food products. And this morning, we'll be looking at water and milk. And after each session, we'll have a question and answer session. So prepare your questions after each presenter. Now, into our icebreaker and an opportunity as well for some learning. So get your quick fingers ready. So on the screen right now, we have some labeling requirements. They're numbered. And what I want you to do is to list in the chat the labeling requirements that are mandatory for every prepackaged products, right? Just the ones that are mandatory for every prepackaged product. You do not have to list, you do not have to write out all the names. You can just list the numbers, right? We look at the first 10, and if we don't see the correct answer, we'll go beyond that. So my colleagues are right now looking in the chat to see if they see the correct answer. You'll have a minute. So by the time I'm through speaking, your opportunity would have passed. So number 1 is the product name. Number 2 is the storage instructions. Number 3, the address statement. Number 4, allergen declaration. Number 5, ingredient listing. Number 6, instructions for use. Number 7, alcohol content. And 8, or date mark. Do we have a winner? We do have a winner. Oh, all right. So they'll keep looking. Hopefully, we will get the opportunity to send their token from the Bureau of Standards. So let us continue. Hopefully at the end of this initial presentation, we'll be able to tell you who the winners are. So you would have heard from the video just now some of the cost of improper food labeling, but just to emphasize some things. Over 45% of food recalls in the US during the year 2024 were due to labeling errors, and that cost the industry nearly $2 billion. Here locally, our regulatory department, the NCRA, prevented $250 million worth of goods from being placed on the shelves for sale. Now, we would understand that probably not all of this is based on labeling, but of course, a significant portion of it would have been. Undeclared allergens, even as we heard in this video,
Sorry,
are
Paulette?
leading cause. Yeah.
Sorry, we're not seeing the slides changing. We're still at the outline.
Oh. All right. Thank you for that. Thank you so much. Are you seeing the slide now?
Full screen it.
Are you seeing the screen?
It's not
We're
in
seeing the screen, but
presentation
it's
mode.
not in the present. Yeah.
Yeah, not in
All right, but it's
presentation
not
format.
in presentation mode. All right. So I am gonna just try and fix that a little. Let me stop sharing just for a little. Let me just stop sharing and share again to see if that will resolve the problem. Oh. Let me just try and resolve that. Here am I sharing. That's not true. Right here. Yeah, should be. See? Oh, all right. So I'm gonna try to fix that. So what I'm gonna do just for now, until our next presenter comes up, I will just share the slide with you, not in slideshow because it seems as if that is the problem. I'll just share the slide with you and then
Did you try clicking slideshow at the top?
so I hope it is resolved now. It seemed to have been resolved. All right.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so continuing, the high cost of improper food labeling. We do not want you to burn your money up. Neither do we want your food recalled so that, of course, there are consequences where that is concerned. There are consequences. So we see that, sorry about that. So here we go again. Undeclared allergens are the leading cause of food recalls, posing serious health risk. We see how mislabeling can also lead to legal penalties, lost sale, and of course, serious damage to your brand, which I'm sure you would have spent a lot of time building. So, proper labeling protects consumers, ensures compliance, and strengthens brand trust. So, this workshop here today is geared towards strengthening your brand and allowing you to protect your consumers and, of course, cause you to make money and not to lose money in the process. So, again, we really hope that this will add significant value to your business. All right. So this is the end of my initial presentation. I will see you again at the optional labeling part. However, I'm just trying to find out if we got a winner. Did we have a winner?
Somebody listed most of them. But we're still seeing here. I don't want to be
So
All right, so we are going to be checking for the winner, and we will advise on the winner. Thank you so very much, Paulette, and our apologies to all of our audience for the challenges we faced earlier. But I think we're now beyond that. So let's take a look at today's agenda. We have a lineup of 4 expert speakers who will guide us through the essentials of food labeling. Karumi Huey, technician. Our first presentation will cover mandatory requirements for food labels, general requirements, and the key compliance areas. This is the foundation of food labeling and will set the stage for the rest of our discussions. Paulette Bailey, analyst, who you just encountered a while ago. She will examine optional information that, while not mandatory, can be beneficial for consumers and enhance product appeal. We'll have Matthew Lee, senior analyst. Following Paulette's session, we will delve into the specific labeling requirements for packaged water, ensuring that water products meet the right labeling standards. Our fourth presenter will be Lascelles Tolo, Manager, Packaging, Non-Metallic, and Furniture Branch here at the Bureau of Standards, Jamaica. In his presentation, we will look at labeling requirements for milk products, covering important industry-specific details. Each speaker will present, after which we will have a dedicated time for questions and answers. We encourage you to take notes and to participate actively. As we indicated before, you may put your questions in the chat and we will seek to respond to those immediately after the presentation. This session is designed to be informative and interactive. So let's make the most of it. Let's get started. I now invite Karumi Huey, a technician here in the packaging, non-metallic, and the furniture branch, to begin with the first presentation on mandatory and general labeling requirements. Karumi, over to you.
Good morning. My name is Mr. Yuri Karumi from the packaging department. Morning. My name is Mr. Karumi Yuri from the packaging department. My presentation is on prepackaged goods and importance of labeling and labeling of our products. Okay. What is the importance of a label? A label helps to advertise the product for the manufacturer, processor, and bear important information that allow the consumer to make informed choices. The label must comply with all regulatory requirements, be accurate, true, and reflect the true nature of the product. The Bureau of Standards' role in this process is to protect consumers through testing and verification. The testing is done by the chemistry branch and the microbiology branch, and the verification is done by the packaging branch. Severe harm can result from consuming unlabeled products. We have 2 bottles that no label is presented, and it is not advisable to consume product that is not properly labeled. Label: any written, electronic, or graphic communication about the product. And packaging are on separate but associate material. This is an example of a label that outlines brand name, the product name, and the net quantity. Different part of a label: the principal display panel or the main panel, the information panel. The principal display panel, the part of the package which is most likely to be displayed, presented, shown, or examined by the consumer. This part of the label must contain the common name of the goods together with any brand name or registered trade name, the net contents of the package. Information panel contain any other information about the product. For example, the name and identifiable address of the processor, manufacturer, packer, importer, or distributor. The country of origin, the listing of ingredients that are contained in the product, including additives, stabilizer, preservative, and whether natural or artificial flavor are added. Date mark, expiration date, and best before, etc. Of a label. On the principal display panel, that will be the front, that you will see any brand that is the brand name, sweet peas that will be the product name, and the net weight in terms of the metric unit that will be on the principal display panel. The right side is information panel that include the nutritional facts, ingredients, and that will include also the address statement. Product name. The name shall indicate the true nature of the product and normally be specified and not generic. A common name or username can be used where the name is not established in a national or regional standard. Product name, Irish juice. Product name, carrot and beetroot juice. These are 2 examples. One that outline incorrect name, Irish juice. The correct name, carrot and beetroot, identify what the product is actually about. Net quantity declaration. The net content shall be declared in metric system. If the imperial system is used to declare the net content, it shall be stated in conjunction with the metric. For example, that is not correct. The net content 500 ml, lowercase m, and capital letter L. Net content 500 ml, and you have the imperial measurement in bracket. The country of origin. The country of origin of the food shall be declared. Product of Jamaica, made in Jamaica, manufactured in Jamaica, processed in Jamaica. Address statement, the name and address statement. The name and address statement of the manufacturer, packer, distributor, or importer, exporter, or vendor of the food shall be declared. The address shall be identifiable. The first address, second address. The first address is incomplete. If you notice that there, you have the manufacturer by Wireless Standard Limited, the incomplete street address. So the manufacturer by Wireless Standard Limited, 101 Sunnyview Meadows, Kingston 20, Jamaica, West Indies, is the complete because it outlined the manufacturer, a complete address, and the country of origin, the country that is the product has been made. Date mark. This is the best before expiration date for the product. The best before shall be outlined with the month and the year. The best before 2024-09-06 don't identify properly because the 9 could be the month, the 9 could be the date, the 6 could be the month, and also be the date. So it's important that you identify the best before by using the month. Instruction for use. Instruction for use, including reconstitution, where applicable, shall be include the label to ensure correct utilization of the food. For example, add 2 part water to 1 part product. That is an example. Storage information. This information aid in extending the shelf life of the product, as well as give the consumer pointers on how to preserve the product. Keep refrigerated. Store at room temperature, refrigerated after opening. List of ingredients. A list of ingredients shall be declared on the label, exempt for single ingredients food. Ingredients must be listed in decreasing order or proportion by weight. Class name shall be written in conjunction with the specific name for some specific food additive. Example, sodium benzyne. In parentheses, preservative. Pork fat, lard, and beef fat shall always be declared by their specific names. List of ingredients. Pineapple drink, ingredients, water, sugar, carrot juice, sodium benzyne. On the left. On the right, you have product name, pineapple drink. Ingredients, water, sugar, pineapple juice, sodium benzyne. In parentheses, you see the preservative in bracket. Correct. Label requirement for allergen are ingredients that cause hypersensitivity. The following food and ingredients are known to cause hypersensitivity and shall always be declared. Cereal containing gluten such as wheat, eggs and egg products, fish and fish products, peanuts and soybean and their related products. These are some allergens that must be declared on the label. Presentation of information. Statement required to be presented on the label must be clear, prominent, and readily legible by the consumer on a normal condition of purchase. The information appearing on the label shall be of minimum letter size 1.5 millimeter in lowercase 0. The product and net content shall appear on the main or principal display panel of the label. The language of the label shall be of the official language of the country in which it is sold. That ending the presentation of the general requirement of prepackaged goods.
Thank you, Harumi. Thank you so very much. Now we recognize that we have seen some questions in the chat, and I know that there are some persons who might be asking additional questions. So we'll ask you to raise your hands, and we are going to take the questions in the order in which we see the raised hand. And so we see Leela Johnson. But just before Leela Johnson, are there any questions that we're seeing in the chat, colleagues, that we want to draw specific attention to? Can you just please identify? But in the interim, Leela, please go ahead with your question.
Good morning, everyone. The speaker mentioned that the label should be in the language of the country that is the product is originated from. If you're shipping the goods to a country, let's just say I'm shipping my good from Jamaica to Spain. Do I need to put the language that the country is going to on it? Because sometimes we buy products coming from China and it have the Mandarin language, but we don't understand it. So
All right.
that's what.
Thank you for that
Make clear.
question. It's Miss Johnson. So our focus is on the local market. So let's look at the example of a good coming to Jamaica. So the requirement of the standard is that it must have the language of the country, which is English for us. There is no prohibition or prohibitive thing that says that you cannot have an additional language, but the requirement is that there must be the language of the nation, which is English in our case, that is presented on the label. So it can be English, and if it's coming from China, Mandarin with the English, but under no circumstances should it be only Mandarin. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome.
All right, thank you, Leela, for that question. And we have Terence Anderson. Terence, please go ahead. Terence, do you still have a question? If not, we go on to Shawnette Ray. Shawnette, please go ahead with your question.
Good morning, everyone. I think Miss Anderson was just trying to speak. But, good afternoon. Just one quick question, just to piggyback on something you just said, Mr. Len. You said that at no point in time there should be just Mandarin on the products coming to Jamaica.
According to the standard, you are to have the label in the language of the country, meaning the country of use, which in our case is Jamaica. So by the standards definition, it should not be only a foreign language on the label.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
We acknowledge Suzette King.
Good morning. Just a quick question on caramel as an allergen. How would you treat that? Caramel.
Are you taking that question, Lesso?
Sure. So based on this standard, I don't believe that caramel is listed as one such of the allergens that would be required to be declared. So in relation to that specific question, based on the standard, there would not necessarily be the requirement for that.
Are you good with that response? Any queries?
Yes, I'm good. Thank you for the clarity.
Thank you, Suzette. Thank you so much. And thanks, Shawnette, before. We recognize Rack Robinson.
Hi, yes, good morning. I was just wondering if there are organizations that you recommend working with to create the nutritional labels and the label for like a new product.
You can go ahead. All right. Thank you for that question, a very important question. So the government has a lot of agencies or organizations that seek to assist customers or potential manufacturers or producers of products. And one such is like the JBDC. So you are able to sign up with them. They will offer you guidance and guidance in all areas of your product development, which includes label assessment. So that would be one such as a recommendation. Also, if you are going into a specific area, you could always come to the BSJ, check with the library, and to find the specific standard for that product, and you are then able to get a very good idea of what are the requirements for that product in terms of labeling and otherwise.
Okay, thank
Thanks.
you.
Thanks
And
for
is that
that.
information? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Rack.
No, thank you for those resources. And is the information for also available on the website for BSJ for like based on each product type?
When you speak of product type, you're seeking about getting nutritional information for each?
No, like what the required standards are for a specific product type.
All right, so as Lassell outlined earlier, the Bureau of Standards Jamaica, we have several standards. We have several standards available in our Technical Information Center. And what is encouraged is that once you're going to be doing a particular product, you would check to see if there is a product standard here in Jamaica. So first of all, if you're doing food processing, you would need to be guided by the Jamaica Standard Specification for Processed Food General. Now, this standard is a standard that governs all food processors in Jamaica, prepackaged food processors in Jamaica. So you need to have that standard and then be guided, and the session will speak to the JSCRS1, a labeling standard. It is important that you actually coordinate with the Bureau of Standards. You check in to find out those standards, and then if there are particular product standards, and that can guide you.
Oh yeah, I understand. I was just asking if that information is available online instead of having to go in person.
The standards are not available online. The list of standards are there. The standards are free. You can access the standards for free in the library. You can review them, but the standards are made available for sale. You can be in touch with the Technical Information Center at tic@bsj.org.jm. We'll drop that information in the chat so persons can just reach out directly to the Technical Information Center.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're most welcome. So we recognize some other questions, and in this order, Suzette King, Anika Sweeney, Simona Campbell, and Shireen Cunningham. Suzette.
Okay, so yes, if you manufacture through SRC, scientific research, do you have to put them on the label as well as a primary manufacturer?
You want to take it? Thank you.
So good morning again, everyone. If you manufacture at the Scientific Research Council, no, you do not have to include them on the label because you have options of who you want to include on the label. You can use the distributor, the manufacturer, the importer. So if you're the distributor, that's fine. You can use your information. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Suzette. Aniko?
Hi, good morning, everyone. I had a similar question with SRC because I'm actually in the process right now. The testing, the chemical testing, the microbiological testing, those are the same testing that you guys. What I want to know is that when I'm finished, I don't have an issue with Bureau through SRC. I'm just making sure that all my I's are dotted and my T's are crossed in the sense of if I'm ready to do export, I don't have you guys telling me no, my product isn't. So I'm trying to find out now if Bureau recognizing the testings that SRC does and they are applicable for exporting process.
The Bureau of Standards Jamaica provides testing services, so does the Scientific Research Council. What you should be concerned with is, are you having your item tested in an accredited laboratory so that when it enters a particular space that you're exporting to? Remember, the Bureau of Standards Jamaica is not involved in the export process per se. What we do is facilitate helping people and getting persons ready for market. So what you need to do is to be mindful of what the country to which you're exporting, what are their requirements for you to export products there. But the SRC and the BSJ both provide testing services. It is for you to now make a determination which of the services you'd want to access or which one of the service providers you'd wish to access. But ensure, though, that your label for the local market is assessed by the Bureau of Standards Jamaica. That's the Bureau of Standards Jamaica is the only entity that can do a label assessment and give indicate that the label is properly done.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. Simona, please go ahead. And I'm so happy to see the questions. We do have a few in the chat that we're also going to draw on. And do remember that we have some other aspects of the presentation. So there might be some things that are going to be coming up later. But Simona, I think, is Simona.
Hi, good morning, everyone. And thank you so much. I have a two-part question. One, baked products would fall under what standard? That's the first part of the question. And then two, is nutritional facts a requirement for my label? And if so, does the Bureau of Standards provide nutritional fact testing to say what is in my product?
Thank you for that question, Simona. You're saying if baked products, just repeat for me.
Yes, baked products, sweet treats like rock cake, things like that. What standard does that fall under? That's part one. And two, does the Bureau of Standards provide that testing or to give me that, provide the nutritional facts for my rock cake?
All right, thank you. Thank you, Simona. Paulette is going to be responding.
Thanks for that question, Simona. So, regarding nutritional information, I will defer the question until a little later because it's a part of what I'll be presenting on shortly. However, regarding the standards for baked products, we do have a bread standard, which you would utilize the
General food standard, the JSCRS5, along with that for bread. However,
however,
for
for
baked
baked
products,
We're not hearing you clearly.
products, we do not have individual standards. So
that would
the
fall under the general food
general food
standard,
standard, which is the JSCRS5. So that would be the standard you'd need to acquire for your other baked products.
Don't know who else is having the challenge, but we did not hear that answer clearly. If you could just
Oh,
text
and you
in
would
the
also
chat
need
the standard.
JS36. Definitely, you'd need JS36 for your baked products. Those standards you definitely need to have.
We didn't hear the
Miss
first one.
Bailey, can you repeat the answer because we're having difficulties hearing you clearly?
So I'm saying that we have a bread standard. So if you're baking bread, you would need that bread standard. For baked goods, you need JS36 for all baked products. And for the labeling of the baked products, you definitely need the General Food Standard, which is the JSCRS5 2010. So those are the standards you would need. And I will speak some more about nutritional information in my presentation coming up. Did that answer your question?
Okay, thank you so much.
thanks, Simona. We are now going to take questions from Shanae, Shelly Smith, and Kai. So Shanae, and I'm thinking it's Shelly and
Hi.
Kai in that order.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. Shanae Cunningham here. Boss, I would just appreciate some clarity on the mandatory requirement of the country of origin on all the label product. So if I want to say a product of Jamaica, could I say product of and put the Jamaica flag or product of Jamaica and the Jamaica flag? Is there a particular protocol around that? Because it's just to highlight the origin. That's my first part of my question.
Morning, Marcel here. So the requirement is to state it. It has some flexibility of how it can be stated. Two common ways of stating it is product of, whatever the country is, in our case, Jamaica, it might be another country. Or most times the other way we see is made in. So it would be made in Jamaica. You cannot use the flag alone. The words must be stated clearly. So whether product of or made in, those are two very common ways we see it represented that are acceptable.
So if I do product of Jamaica with the flag, is there any special requirement to do that? Because you know that there
No.
is some recognition, or is there anything against it, I should say, versus a requirement to include it?
Shanae, we are going to be speaking to the matter of the use of national symbols,
Okay.
including the Jamaican flag, and Paulette will address that in her presentation.
I
Thank you for
appreciate
the
it.
question.
Thank you.
Shelly V, and I'm hoping I'm calling your name properly. My apologies if I'm not.
Yes, Shirley V. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So my question is in regards to cosmetic product. Is for the labeling, for the label, is there a specific standard or is it the general standard? Also, you mentioned ingredients that persons might be allergic to. I noticed that is just food that is listed. Is there any in regards to making cosmetic products? Because we'll do plant-based cosmetics as well.
All right, thank you for the question. But the focus today is on prepackaged foods, hence the material will be geared towards prepackaged foods. We'll be sure to get your contact and we can follow up with you on that part as it relates to other requirements for other products such as your cosmetic. But the focus today really is on prepackaged foods.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so thank you. And Thank you, Shalivi. And Kai, please go ahead with your question. After Yano, we are going to be taking some questions from the chat before we go into the second presentation, which is going to be looking at optional information or other information that can be incorporated in your label. Kai, please go ahead.
Good morning. Thanks for taking my question. All right. So basically, I would like to know what is the process of getting the label passed by the Bureau of Standards. Do we have to drop it off physically or send it in online? And does it come at a cost?
That one. All right, thank you for your question, Kai. So the process is relatively straightforward. The requirement is for physical copies to be submitted at the BSJ location. The physical copies don't have to be the same material that they will be on the product. For instance, you have products with maybe vinyl being the material that makes up the label, but you can actually print it on the sheet. But what is computer sheets? What is absolutely important and required is that it's to the exact size and everything is exactly as it would be on the product in trade. So you are required to carry that to the BSJ customer service unit. They will process you. The costs, we have two services, an express service and a regular service. For the business to get back the report in, and the cost is $8,000. Plus an administrative fee, whilst the regular service is 10 business day turnaround time.
We're not
I'm
hearing
sorry,
you.
we're
Not
not
hearing you very
hearing.
clearly.
There's feedback.
Not hearing it clearly. If you can go back to the beginning of the costing.
And turn
Okay.
off the background noise as well.
All right. Are you hearing better now? Clear?
Yes, thank you.
Sure. So I was saying there are two services, regular and express. The express service is you will get back your report within 3 business days, and the cost for that is 8,320 Jamaican dollars plus an administrative fee. For the regular service, the cost is $4,160, and the turnaround time is 10 business days plus the administrative fee.
How much is the
Thank you.
admin fee?
When you contact the customer service branch, they would be able to just provide that detail. I think it's in the area of $2,000, less than $3,000.
Okay, and just the other part to that. What if you have multiple labels? Is it per label or can it all be done on one report?
No, it's per label, per label. There are some dynamics to that. So what would suggest maybe we'll get your contact so we can get into that dynamic some more. But the costing is per label.
You do provide some
All right,
costs
thanks.
there are some costs that are provided, well, if you are doing a particular number of similar labels, there are some discounts that are afforded. So for those specific questions, one can contact our customer service unit, or you may write to us at info@bsj.org.jm. So we can share some of those specific details later. What we're hoping to do in today's session is to speak to general labeling requirements that can help all of us. Those specific questions we can answer, and some answers are being actually given in the chat. I just want to, I think I said I was going to take one other question and then review some questions in the chat. So if you'll just allow Yana to go ahead, and then we'll review some of those questions in the chat.
Hi, good morning. Thank you. And thank you for this session. I have a question around updating or revision of the standards and the method by which any material changes are communicated to stakeholders. I mean, certainly from my from what I see, several of the standards are, long-standing. I don't know if there's an intention for these standards to be updated, in line with, I guess, changes in international protocol or, national policy, trends, whatever that is. But, some of these standards are coming from 80s, early 90s. And then we have to be supplementing those alongside periodically, checking the BSJ website to see if a guidance note has been issued or if there's something in the public. So I'm curious about if there is gonna be a drive or a program around reviewing and updating the standards, and what is the formal process or the proposed process that stakeholders should be undertaking to ensure that any supplemental guidance that has come out, any standard that is being applied by BSJ but is nowhere to be found in the written standards, but by which we are expected to adhere, how that will be communicated or can be communicated to us, in a helpful
All
way.
right. So, Yana, thank you for that question. The standards development process is led by the standards development branch of the Bureau of Standards Jamaica. And this process includes incorporating persons from industry, consumers, persons from academia, persons who can assist the process. They are out there in the field, they are doing stuff. Best practices internationally are also looked at. The JSCRS 5, for example, which speaks to prepackaged goods, was 10 or 2010 or 2017. And there is usually, for those standards that require, standards are updated very frequently every 5 years. Now, it depends on if there are changes in the marketplace that would impact the standards. If there is any change, then those changes are made and the changes are communicated to the general public prior to, because persons are invited to make comments on the standards through we advertise through our website, through the print media, and we invite persons to participate in that. We certainly appreciate the question, and if you'd like to be active in that process, then Yana, I could share your details with the development branch in relation to the standards development and review of additional standards or standards that cover labeling and foods.
Yes, I would, and I appreciate that opportunity.
Thank you so very much. All right, so we do have some questions in the chat, and I just want to recognize, I know there are quite a bit of discussion, but I saw one from Janice Mitchell and I saw one from Giona Gallimore. I think there were 2 questions, but there are also responses to the icebreakers. So we have quite a bit of stuff. Let me just, why do you have to list product weight if you aren't selling a product based on its weight? Like of weight varies. Why do you have to list product weight if you aren't selling a product based on its weight? Like of weight varies. I'm not quite sure what that says, but all right, so I understand that response was put in the chat. Let me just find the response. So since we have read it here, Matthew, could you just maybe speak to that?
Good morning, everyone. So the question being asked is, why is net weight required if you aren't seeking by weight but rather quantity? So what is required is the net quantity declaration. So whether that be by quantity, by weight, by volume, depending on the product. So I see that you gave the example of if it's 5 packs. So sausage, I would recommend that you state that in weight, as it's a prepackaged food.
But let's say something, for example, like matches, it would say a box of 50 matches. It wouldn't necessarily be in a weight. So one more a quantity. So it's as applicable to the product.
I hope that helps, Giona. There's another question from Janice Mitchell. It says, if we are making a product strictly for export, do we abide by Jamaican law or the labeling guidelines of the landing country? That was responded to. All right, fine. Great. So it
I
seems
did
as if,
response, Alice. I'm so
all right,
sorry.
thank you so very much. All right, and I see somebody had also, Triana, or colleague from JBDC had also indicated that if you're going to be using the flag and seeking permission from the OPM, and that will come out in the presentation. So thank you for your questions. So very excited to see the interaction from you. We do appreciate that. And so we now continue as we invite.
Alice, I'm so sorry. I didn't see the response and I can't find it in the chat.
You did, oh, I thought you said you saw it.
No, I didn't see it. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. One of our participants, one of our presenters will respond in the chat, Janice. All right?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so very much. And I see some other details, some specifics about cost and stuff. Those have been shared there, so persons can just review the chat. I do know that lots of responses have come in, but thank you so very much for your energy. Antoinette, we recognize you, but we are going to go back to presentation at this point, so please hold that question if you will. Thank you very much. At this point, we're going to invite Paulette. We did indicate that Paulette is an analyst, and she will be sharing some information in relation to the optional information that you can utilize on your labels and how we treat that. So, making Paulette Bailey, please come to the virtual podium.
So good morning again for those who are just joining. And before I continue my presentation, I'm going back to the icebreaker. And unfortunately, we'll have to keep our prizes because we haven't seen any winner. And I'm just going to go through them now to tell you what is the answer that we were expecting. Because of course, there's a little trick to it, and I'll explain. So I'm just showing you now. I know it's not in presentation mode. That is what you should have seen. Just a minute, please. Just a minute.
No, we can't.
So sorry about that again. But we can talk about it. So the product name would definitely have to be on every label. Every product, that is mandatory. So if you had that, you definitely would be correct. Just a minute. So here we are now. So sorry. The product name, if you had the product name as an answer, that would have been correct. That has to be on every single prepackaged product. Now, storage instructions, if you had that, you would not have been correct because it's not mandatory for every product, just products whose integrity depends on the storage instructions. There are products that you can store however you want and they still maintain their integrity. So that is not mandatory for every single prepackaged goods. Number 3, the address statement, if you had that, you would have been correct because that is mandatory for every prepackaged good. Again, allergen declaration, if there is no allergen to declare, you wouldn't need it on your product. 5, ingredient listing. You would have seen from Mr. Huey's presentation that if it's a single ingredient product, an ingredient listing is not required, right? So again, if you had that, you would not have been correct. Number 6, instructions for use. That is only required when the product can be misused. And for a lot of food items, it's not required. Alcohol content, again, you would not need that unless you have alcohol in your product. Date mark, yes, that is definitely required. So, correct answer. Number 1, product name. Number 3, address statement. And number 8, date mark. Of course, there are a lot of other mandatory items that I didn't put in the icebreaker, but that is the answer. Okay, so I'm heading now to my presentation on other requirements. We just want to let you know that this is a labeling presentation. So there are definitely other areas that you will need to explore when you are about to do your production, just so that that is clear to everyone. And there are also product standards that you will need. But today we're definitely speaking about labeling. Now, I will be talking to you about optional labeling requirements for pre-packaged goods. These are optional because if you do not have to put them on your label, but there are things that will enhance their marketability and safety and so forth. And we're about to tell you what to do when you have them on your labels. Topics we'll explore: the nutritional information, of course, national symbols, artificial foods, their use, irradiated products, organically produced products, and of course, health claims. Nutritional facts labeling. Now, this is not mandatory for most products. However, once it is used on your label, we request that you submit a nutritional analysis report from a reputable laboratory. And this is so because, unfortunately, We have had situations where persons just look at a similar product, take the nutritional information from it, and put on their product. Now, that is totally not acceptable because, of course, the composition of your product is different. So we request that you have your product tested and send the report to us. When you're sending the report to us, please send all of the report because we'd like to see that it went to such and such laboratory and it was signed by the analyst. Don't just send us the part with the nutrition facts. We need everything. These are some products that the nutritional facts are mandatory for: milk, which you'll hear more about later, and also coffee. Now, this is a representation of two nutritional facts panel. The one on the left is what we used to use, but we have since changed to the one on the right, which emphasizes some of the nutrients more, and it is the FDA format. But again, it's not mandatory, but that is the one we utilize currently. Use of national symbols. Whichever national symbol you want to use, some of them may not be applicable to your products, but whichever national symbol you need to use, you need to go to the office of the Prime Minister so that they can approve it. It's a relatively simple process, it seems, because most persons who do it usually come back in a short period of time. So yes, if you want to use the flag, that's totally fine. And we just encourage you, when you're taking in your label, to take that in as well. Because if you have the flag or nutritional information on your label without the supporting documents, you know you're going to have to come back and do a resubmission. So we're advising you to just do these first. Now we're looking at artificial foods. Now, any label or advertisement for artificial, imitation, substitute, or synthetic food must clearly state these terms or similar words in full. And it must be an integral part of the name of the food, and it must be in identical type and be identically displayed with such name. So it is not okay to put it at the back of the label or at the bottom in some really small writing. And we have some examples here. We would need people to be informed about their choices, so we need it to be displayed properly. And now we're talking about irradiated foods. What is that? Food irradiation is a process that utilizes ionizing radiation to kill bacteria, parasites, and pests in food, improving shelf life and safety. Please note that it does not make food radioactive or change its nutritional value significantly. Irradiated food, it's not radioactive because the radiation passes through without leaving harmful residues. And of course, these are some commonly used methods. Now, what is the protocol what does the standard say when you're using radiated food? I'm just gonna show you this diagram, shows you some of what irradiated foods are, some of what irradiation is used to do. It inhibits sprouting, infestation, things like those. And of course, it extends shelf life. So persons may choose to consume this food because they find it healthier. Other persons may not think so. But whatever it is, we want persons to be informed about the choices that they're making. Therefore, any food treated with irradiation shall carry a written statement on its label indicating that treatment. Information must again be in close proximity to the name of the food. If used as an ingredient, it should be declared as such in the ingredient listing. And also, if you have a single ingredient product that is prepared from an irradiated raw material, it should be declared on the label. Now, the thing is, we do not know sometimes what you're doing in your processes until, of course, the regulatory company comes to visit you. So we do not want it to be that, they have to say you have to pull your food from the market because you have not declared these processes that you're doing. So we're encouraging you to follow the steps that we're giving you here. Organically produced foods. Now, products that are labeled organic, biological, ecological, biodynamic, or similar terms indicate organic product methods. Now, organic foods must be certified by the competent authority, and even organic ingredients should also be certified. Now, in short, a food is not organic unless it is certified. The organic process is really intense and detailed. It's not just simply not using fertilizer. It goes way beyond that. So we want to ensure that products that are labeled organic has gone through this process. Health claims. What is a health claim? A health claim is a claim that represents representation which states or suggests or implies that a relationship exists between a food or a constituent of that food and health, right? While health claims are allowed on labels, they must have the approval of the Ministry of Health before being permitted. And I'm saying this here, I'm going now into some health claims that are permitted. Now, health claims that are allowed, we have nutrition function claim. A nutrition function claim describes how a nutrient supports growth, development, and body functions. An example of such claim is calcium aids in the development of strong bones and teeth. And all the time we get, but everybody knows that. However, the ministry needs to look at your products and tell us that, yes, your product does that. We have enhanced function claim. An enhanced function claim describes how foods or their components benefit physiological or psychological functions, support health, or improve body functions, excluding, of course, nutrient function claims. An example of that, folate can help reduce plasma homocysteine levels. That is an example of enhanced function claim. And we also have the reduction of disease claim. These claims link a food or its components to a lower risk of disease or health conditions within a balanced diet. They should include 1, details on a recognized diet-health relationship, and 2, information on the product's relevant composition unless the claim applies to a whole food. And an example of that is iron can help reduce the risk of anemia. Food A is a rich source of iron. So those claims are normally 2 parts. So all of these are allowed, but again, get the approval from the Ministry of Health and take it in to us after so that we do not have to hold up your label. You understand? But all of that would be there. There are some prohibited claims, of course, claims which cannot be substantiated. Claims that may raise doubts about similar food safety or exploit consumer fear. I can't think of an example for that. An example for that could be all prepackaged foods, all processed foods cause cancer. That would definitely raise consumer fears, and claims like those are not allowed. Claims suggesting a balanced diet lacks sufficient nutrients, not permitted. Potentially misleading claim. Any claim that is misleading, please, they are not allowed. Just some general information on the prevention of deception. A label on a prepackaged good may contain other information, designs, symbols, or pictorial matter, provided that no word, illustration, symbol, or other matter are used to give erroneous impression of the net contents, ingredients, or country of origin. And I will say for anything on that matter. So a quick recap. Artificial foods must always be stated as a part of the product name. Nutritional analysis is needed to verify the nutrition facts panel. Irradiated foods and ingredients must always be declared. Organic foods or ingredients should always be accompanied with certification documents. Health claims should always be approved by the Ministry of Health. Again, we ask that you just supply us with the relevant documents and information when you're submitting your labels. It is the responsibility of any person who manufactures, sell, or distribute any goods to ensure that they are labeled as required by these standards. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Bailey. Thank you so very much for that very interesting, informative presentation. Last time I saw quite a few questions coming in after the first presentation. We want to manage our time, so we will take 4 questions, as many as 4 questions at this point. If we have any questions for Paulette in relation to the optional labeling, optional information for our label. Certainly, I know the point was reiterated in relation to the use of the Jamaican flag or other national symbols. That's a question that I know that we get here at the Bureau of Standards quite a bit. Are there any questions? All right. So if there are no questions, thank you, Paulette. And now Shanae, we do see your hand. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Again, just to confirm, is there any guidance notes as to like the legal basis for who to go to about the flag? Is there a law? Is there somewhere you can point us to about where the rule is about the
Well, I
permission
can't
for the
necessarily
flag?
speak to a law, but I can say that that is where it ought to be done. This is information that has been made public by the Office of Prime Minister.
Okay.
And that is the guideline.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Simona?
Yes, I saw part of my question answered about the nutritional analysis. So the question is, does the Bureau do this, offer this service, nutritional analysis, and what is the cost?
The Bureau does provide nutritional analysis. Now, the cost may vary dependent on the elements that you wish to include in the nutritional analysis. That would best be discussed with the chemistry branch at the point of making the inquiry.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Shanae and Simona. We appreciate your participation. So, having looked at some of those issues, we have spoken about general requirements. We have looked at some optional information that one could include, and these presentations were made in the first instance by Perumi Huey and secondly by Paulette Bailey. At this point, we are going to shift our focus a little bit, and we are going to be looking specifically at packaged water. Now, I know it sounds nice here, we said packaged water, but everywhere in Jamaica, all across this country, people do bottled water, or people might do water in plastic bags. It's a very big seller, or it's an area that many persons have an interest in. Water is a staple product, but did you know that it has its own set of label requirements? Ensuring compliance is key for safety, transparency, and market access. To walk us through these regulations, certainly here in the local space, we have Matthew Lee, a senior analyst. Matthew will outline the specific standards for packaged water labeling, including what must be declared, how to present information correctly, and some considerations for packaging and branding. Matthew has been an analyst since 2022 and is now a senior analyst here at the Bureau of Standards Jamaica in the packaging, non-metallic, and furniture branch. Matthew, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Leng, for that introduction. Hope you're hearing me clearly. Just to reintroduce myself, my name is Matthew Lee, a senior analyst here at the Bureau of Standards in the Packaging, Non-Metallics, and Furniture Department. And I'm going to be here walking you through some of the labeling guidelines for packaged water. So the standard that I'm going to be using to reference this information, it's going to be JSCRS 1 2010, and that's the Jamaican Standard Specification for Packaged Water. I would highly recommend anyone or anybody that is looking into producing packaged water to get a copy of this standard. It's very deep, it's very detailed. And going forward, I would also recommend that you have your water tested. So a lot of the information that you need to put on the label is going to come from that test report. So the test report for the water, as well as the standard, those should be, you know, priority when you're looking to package water. Okay, so the objectives here was going to be to identify the different classifications of packaged water, the labeling differences in those classifications, and there are some terms that we're going to be touching on so you can be more familiar when you see them if you do plan to go into packaged water in the future. All right, so first, packaged water. What is packaged water? So packaged water, it's going to be any water for human consumption that may contain minerals, carbon dioxide, it's naturally occurring, and it's intentionally added, but does not contain sweeteners, sugars, or flavorings. I know it says other than mineral water, because mineral water is the closest thing to raw water that is being packaged. So the treatment process is a little bit different between mineral water and other classifications, but we're going to go into that a little bit more. So the three main types of packaged water we have are purified water, spring water, and natural mineral water. So we're first going to take a look at purified water or purified drinking water. So all the labeling requirements that are about to be stated, they are in addition to the general labeling requirements that were stated by Mr. Huey earlier. So these are additional requirements. So these also have to be stated along with the general ones, such as the product name, country of origin, name and address of manufacturer as well. So these are additions. That's why it's important to know that based on your product, there may be a specific standard that will have additional information. All right, so for purified water, the product name can be purified water, pure drinking water, or any other appropriate description that you may see fit. And it also may be modified by the words distilled, demineralized, sparkling, or carbonated, still, depending on the type of water that you're producing and the processes that it may have gone through. So additionally to the product name, there are additional information such as the total dissolved solids content, and you would have gotten that unit from the testing that your water would have been put through, as well as the indication of the method used in treatment. So whether you use the water from reverse osmosis, you add ozone, it's distilled, whatever treatment you use needs to be stated as well. And for purified water only, when it's prepared from a public or private tap water distribution system, it needs to have the statement on the principal display panel that says from a public or private distribution system on that label as well. I hope you guys are following me. I know it's a lot to digest at the moment, but if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or put any questions in the chat. So the next water that we're going to be looking at here is spring water. So the product name for spring water is going to be spring water. And if it has carbon dioxide added, then it's going to be carbonated spring water. So additionally, similarly to the purified water, it's going to also need a total dissolved mineral salt content, as well as a fluoride content. So it's different from the purified water, as this one is the total dissolved mineral salt content and the fluoride content.
Yeah, it's been a while.
So just to reiterate the importance of having the water tested before you create the label, and having a copy of the standard as well. I see someone speaking. You have a question? Okay, so let's continue. Continuing for spring water, if any ozone is added, then that is stated as well, the declaration of any added ozone. And you also have some optional labeling that you can be done. So if you have the water tested and the results show that the sodium content is less than the 20 and the 5,
I'm not hearing you.
sodium.
Annalise,
Somebody ask Annalise to mute her thing, please.
you please.
I think we have someone's mic open. Okay, all right. Let's go back just in case you guys missed anything. So the last requirement for spring water is if there was any addition of ozone that needs to be declared on the label. And some optional labeling that you can have is if after you have it tested and you notice that the contents, let's say for example sodium, it's less than 20 milligrams per liter, then you could use the statement as low sodium, or if it's less than 5 milligrams per liter, you can add the statement as sodium free. So those are optional. So finally, we're going to look at mineral water. So mineral water, the product name, mineral water or natural mineral water. And the geographical location and the name of the source needs to be declared. So mineral water, if it's for example, Blue Mountain mineral water, you're going to state it as Blue Mountain mineral water. Information from your test results need to be stated as well. So that's the total dissolved mineral salt content, that's in milligrams per liter, as well as any addition of fluoride or ozone would need to be declared as well. And mineral water also has some optional labeling. Not to get too in-depth, but after you've had the water tested and based on the results, you can use statements such as alkaline, saline, low in sodium, once the results are in conjunction with that as well. Some other statements you could use are contains fluoride, contains iron, and contains iodide. So just to give a snapshot of the key differences between the three. So you know that the purified water, it needs to have the total dissolved solids content, the indication of treatment used, as well as the statement from a public or private distribution system. Spring water, it needs to have the total dissolved mineral salt content, the total fluoride content, and the declaration of ozone. And for mineral water, as well, the total dissolved mineral salt content, the geographical location, and the declaration of ozone. So we spoke about what information needs to be on the label, but there are some restrictions on what cannot be on the label. So you can't have any statement or pictorial device that may mislead the consumer into tricking them of the nature, the origin, or the composition or properties of the water. So if, for example, your water contains iron, does not contain iron, you can't have any images that may represent that it does contain iron. As well as the trade or brand name referring to mineral or spring water, it cannot include the name or location of the community unless the source is located in that location or community. So an example of that would be, let's use a hypothetical water community, ABC spring water. If it's from that community, it could be labeled as that, the trade or brand. But if it's not from that community, it cannot be labeled as that. So you might think about some brands that are out there on the market and say the name might be in conjunction with where it's from. Once that's accurate, then that's fine. For purified water, the name or brand name shall not include any geographical location, feature, or community. So different from the mineral spring water, it's not acceptable for purified water. And finally, water should have no claims for medicinal effects, whether preventative, nutritive, alleviative, or curative, other than the nutrients that were stated from the testing. So just to recap, we just went through the different types of packaged water. So that's the mineral, the spring, and the purified water, as well as some of the key differences in how to label those water. I thank you for your time. Do I have any questions?
There are some questions in the chat.
There are some questions in the chat.
One question from Natalia Johnson says, if the purified water is sourced from a well, do you still need to state from a public or private distribution system on the principal display panel?
Thank you for that question. So yes, Natalia, if the
whether it be a public or a private well, it would still need to be stated on the panel.
I think the other questions may have been addressed. All right, fine, great. Thank you. Are there any other questions for Matthew Lee in relation to packaged water? Thank you, Matthew. I see no questions.
Hello, good
That
day.
was
I
very
have a
detailed
question.
and quite a necessary breakdown of the labeling requirements for packaged water. Clearly, ensuring proper labeling is not just about compliance, but also maintaining consumer trust. Our final segment focuses on another specialized category. Today, we are going to be looking, in addition to the matter of water or the product water, we're looking at milk products. Milk and dairy labeling require additional considerations, particularly in areas such as nutritional content, processing methods, and consumer safety. To take us through these specifics, we welcome Lascelles Tolo, Manager of Packaging, Non-Metallic, and Furniture. products and what businesses must
Thank you, Sir Ling, and good morning to the listening audience. As Sir Ling said, my name is Lassell Tolo, the manager for the packaging, non-metallic and furniture branch. In the concluding part of the presentation, we are now looking at the label requirements for milk products specifically. So the standards that we will be looking at today to guide us with these requirements are the JS 171 2018, which is a Jamaican standard for liquid whole milk, JS 173 2018, which is a Jamaican standard specification for recombined milk, and JS 174 2018, which is a Jamaica standard for liquid low-fat and liquid non-fat cow's milk. So just to set the tone for the presentation, we'll give the definition for milk. It states that milk is the lacteal secretion, particularly free from colostrum, obtained directly by the complete milking of one or more healthy cows. So that's highly scientific. As you see the picture there, that is exactly the content that's coming from the cow. That's the definition for that content. All right, so as I would have stated before, there are 3 standards we're looking at. They speak to different classification of milk. And the first one being JS 171 is speaking to liquid whole milk. So it is good to have an idea of what the whole milk really is. There are a lot of words there, but I'll read some of it and then just tell you the key takeaway in the definition. So it says pasteurized or raw unpasteurized milk containing not less than 3.25% of milk fat, 8.5% of total milk. So in essence, the key takeaway from this definition really is the fat content, that it should not be less than 3.25%. All right, so for milk, as Mrs. Bailey would have stated in her presentation for optional requirement, that most products are not requiring that, but she had stated that milk is one that requires it. So the milk standard requires that a nutritional label is placed on the product. So if you are doing anything with milk in terms of these 3 categories, then you are required to place a nutritional facts on your label. All right, it also gives a guideline in terms of the product name. It states that the product name milk shall appear on the principal display panel. That is in keeping with what we have been hearing throughout the day, that the product name should be on the principal display panel. Also, it speaks to treatment, that whatever treatment it has undergone, it should be stated. For instance, one such treatment is pasteurization or homogenization or ultra-high temperature. All these treatments really speak to the addition of whether chemical or heat to do something to the fat content of the milk. That's the really layman way of putting these treatment process. But the milk will go through different processes. As we see on this box, we see the product name on it. There's also below stating, kind of small, but it's stating homogenized, pasteurized, and it also has instruction for storage on it. So for milks, if you add vitamins or minerals, you are supposed to state it on the label. I know many times you'll buy milk products and you will see maybe enriched with or fortified with. That is their way of conforming to this requirement. Also for storage, if the specific condition to store it will influence the integrity of the product, then it must be stated on the principal display panel. So if you look at the label before, though small, below the pasteurized, it says keep refrigerated right in front of you. So it is clearly stated there. All right, so whilst we would have then gone through the liquid whole milk, we'll take a brief look now at the other standard, which speaks to recombined milk. All right, so there's a definition again in an attempt to let persons understand the different classification of milk. So for recombined full cream milk, it really speaking to product resulting from the combination of milk with reconstituted milk, or with milk products and our various constituents with or without the addition of potable water. So in other words, what this is really saying, it's not the milk that only comes directly from the cow. You would have had some other processes that take place. For instance, you have powdered whole milk and you add it back to the milk, then it is considered recombined milk. Again, it speaks to the fat content being above 3.25%. And they are in this classification of recombined, there are three categories. One being the full cream that we just looked at. The next one is the low fat milk. And again, the takeaway from this is that for it to be considered low fat, the fat content is between 1 and 2%. And for skim milk, that's the third category under recombined. Again, the major difference in it from the full cream or the low fat is in its fat content. And for it to be considered skim, it must have no more than 0.5% fat. Again, it's a requirement. Nutritional facts panel, it's a must, it's mandatory for recombined milk. And the standard JS173, it speaks to how you are to name the product. And for the recombined milk, for the three categories, it gives how the name should be. So one category is recombined milk, the next being recombined low-fat milk, and the third being recombined skim milk. And also to note that the name must be in uniform type, size, and color on the principal display. That is, you can't have the recombine in a very small font and people can't see it and the milk is bold. That will be misleading. Based on the standard, it requires for the name to be in the same font and same size. So both recombine and milk must be in the same font and same size. Also, it is required that any treatment it has undergone is stated. And again, the treatment, some of the common ones are pasteurized, being pasteurized, or homogenized, or UHT, which is ultra high temperature. Again, if you add minerals or vitamins, it must be stated. So you can say vitamin A added, fortified with calcium, etc., etc., etc. For the recombined, if by any chance they would have used reconstituted milk in the composition or the compilation of it, then you are required to state the percentage of the reconstituted milk that you would have put in it. Also, for the recombined low-fat milk, you have to put the actual fat content. So whilst the standards say it must be between 1 and 2% low milk fat, it must be stated on the box. So when you go in the supermarket, you may see quite a few products saying 1%, and you can identify quickly that that is your low-fat milk. Again, if the storage condition will affect the integrity of the product, then it must be stated on the principal display panel. And the final one category we'll be looking at is the JS174, which speaks to low fat. Oh, sorry, my apologies. So the final category we'll be looking at is the JS174, which speaks to the low fat category of milk. So as we have been stating before, a lot of these milk products, the difference in them speaks to the fat content, and there's no different here. So for the low fat milk, it is considered to be low fat if the fat content is between 1 and 2%. Non-fat, which is also called skim milk, the fat content is less than 0.5%. Again, nutritional facts is a must. It's mandatory for it, and it must be presented on your label. The name, the product name, should also be whether low-fat milk or skim milk. And again, it shall appear in uniform type, size, color, and it on the principal display panel. In addition to that, the amount of fat that is in the milk must be stated to the nearest 0.5. So remember, by the definition, it can have between, for the low fat, it can have between 1% and 2%. So really, there are just three representations you can have. You can either have 1, 1.5, or 2, and it must be stated on the principal display panel in close proximity to the product name. Again, whatever treatment it has undergone must be stated, whether pasteurized, homogenized, or UHT, which is ultra high temperatures. And again, if you add minerals or vitamins, you must also declare these on the label. And if the storage conditions will affect the integrity of the product, it must be stated on the principal display panel. So that would be a wrap for the presentation. And the takeaways from this would be the basic definition of milk and its three categories that we look at, and also the mandatory requirements for the labeling, which in a major one speaks to the nutritional facts panel. So I thank you, and if you have any questions, you could go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Tolo. We did have a question from D. Chambers earlier, and so we could take that question. But also, if there are any questions directly in relation to the matter of milk and labeling milk products, certainly we will respond to those. So we acknowledge D. Chambers. In the interim, just to indicate to all of us that we have just dropped in the chat a link to an evaluation that we ask you to complete. We'll also share this link via email, but we're asking persons to go ahead and to complete the evaluation while we're in the session. Additionally, we will share the presentation once we are finished later today. Once we have downloaded the presentation, we will make it available. It will be available via our website, and we will upload to our website and send you the link to access it. So, Mr. Chambers, or D. Chambers, please go ahead.
Hi, afternoon. Thank you for that. My question was about two presenters ago. Sorry, not this current presentation. The person that spoke before, Matthew Lee, had mentioned something about nutritional facts, and I was having connectivity issues. So I was just asking what was being said about nutritional facts. Is it a requirement? If it is, what exactly was said? Like, I missed that entire chapter for that person. And then I had another question which I had asked about, I don't know, probably from the start, which is the net and the weight issue, that conversation. I was just wondering what is the actual terminology and what should be on the labels. Is it just the number and unit? Should it be net content? Should it be net weight? Like, what is the correct terminology? So that was my two questions.
All right, please go ahead, Mr. Tolo.
All right, so I'll answer the nutritional facts. So as it relates to the nutritional facts, Mrs. Bailey was mentioning that it is optional for some products. So there are products that it's a requirement for, case in point, milk, which I would have just presented on, but a large amount of the other products, it's not a requirement. You can choose to put it on. Once you do put it on, when you're submitting your label for evaluation or assessment, you will need to take with it a nutritional facts analysis from a reputable lab substantiating the claims. For instance, if your nutritional fact says 5% calcium, there must be a report from a lab substantiating that in your product there is 5% calcium. As it relates to the other part of the question, could you repeat it, please? Regarding the weights and
Yes,
net
sure. But
content?
before, no problem. But before, just to clarify, how do I find out what products require nutritional facts and what products don't? The product type, is that something on the website?
Well, it's not a simple way to find out. That's the truth. The CRS5, which is the general standard, most product that falls directly under that would not require it. However, the ones that have specific standard and have that as a specific requirement, it would be in that specific standard. For instance, the milk that we just gone through, there are 3 of them, JS171, JS173, JS174. In those standards for those milk products, it's clearly stated that if you are doing these category of milk, you must put a nutritional facts on it. So whatever product you are developing, it would be good to see that specific standard for it. And in that standard, will tell you all the things you need, including whether you need nutritional facts or not.
Additionally, if I should just support Mr.
Yes.
Tolo, nutritional facts panel is optional. We're reiterating that for most products. Persons, though, in seeking to enter particular markets must know what those markets require of them. And if you're going into a particular market and if that market requires that you must have a nutrition panel, then you want to ensure that you do that and you are in compliance with the country that you're seeking to export to.
Yes, thank you so much.
These presentations, these awareness sessions that we do from the Bureau of Standards Jamaica serves to provide some basic information to introduce you to the information. But if you are going to do processing of food items, you should be guided by the standards, the JS36, which speaks to processed food general. You should also seek to be guided by the labeling standard that would be applicable. And so there are some products that we have said may require standards. If you're going to go into business, if you're in business, it behooves you. It is important that you check in with the particular organizations that can support you. This might be the Scientific Research Council of Jamaica, the Bureau of Standards Jamaica, Jamaica Business Development Corporation. These entities can assist, but we have to do a little bit of legwork ourselves just to ensure that we get the information that's critical to the particular products that we are doing.
Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. I think there was a second question,
Yeah,
and you were just, Mr. Tolo was just asking that you just repeat the
No,
essence of the question.
The essence of the question was about net or weight and the specific terminology, but I'm just seeing that Paulette Bailey answered that in the chat now.
All right, thank you. Great.
Thank you too.
So we're finished with D Chambers. We're going to take the questions from Kadeen Winter, Cecile Williams, and Shelley V. Smith in that order, and then Antoinette Douglas. So Kadeen, please unmute. If you're able to go on camera, you may do that and state your question.
Hi, good afternoon. I am Kadeen. It's a question relating to some presentation earlier, two presentations earlier, regarding to production date and best before date. Is it that it has to be on the label, or should I declare that it is located on the can on the label or bottle on the label?
I think Paulette is going to take that question.
So you can put it on the can, right? But as you said, you can indicate on the label that where to find it. If it's gonna be somewhere else apart from not on the label, just indicate that it can be found on the top of the can or on the side of the can or wherever. So that is totally acceptable.
Okay, so it has to be declared on the label that it's on the can or bottle.
Yes, we advise that you do that you just indicate where it is, especially if you have a space, because normally persons normally have a space for the best before on the label, right? So if it's not in that space, you can just put in that space. Kindly see the can, right? But outside of that, you can just put it there. Once it is clear for everyone to see, you can just put it on the can.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you. And while I'm doing this, I'd just like to answer. Thank you very much, Miss Winter. I'm through with you. I'd just like to answer a question I see in the chat, which says that, to be clear, was I saying that the most important things on your labels are the product name, the address, and the date mark? No, that was not what that exercise was about. It was just for us to just have a little fun and to know some of the things that should be on every label. Because if your product needs to be stated how it is to be stored to maintain its integrity, it is very important, just as the address and the product name and every other requirement, right? So once your product needs certain requirement, every single one is important, every single one of them. All right, I hope that clarifies that part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Paulette. We ask Cecilia to go ahead with her question. Cecilia Williams.
Hi, good afternoon. Are you hearing me clearly?
Hearing you clearly.
Yes, so my question is, it pertains to the food additives that should be presented on the label. So, is it Mr. Huey? Am I pronouncing his last name correct?
Harumi Huey. Huey is the
Yes.
surname, yes?
Yes. So he had made mention that the food additives, for example, sodium benzoate, and you should have the preservative in bracket. What if it's a situation where you have multiple food additives in that product? How would the preservatives be listed?
All right, so I can answer that. So again, we're just encouraging you to get a standard that is relevant to the product that you're manufacturing. So in the standard, there are a list of additives that it states once you're listing them in your product, they must be represented by the class name and the specific names. I'm just going to name a few. In addition to the preservative, you have the thickener, you have the stabilizer, you have the color and retention, you have artificial color, you have anti-caking agent, acidity regulators, and a list, and a whole list. And it is fine to write each of them separately in brackets. So you would have your preservative, your sodium benzoate, and in bracket, you would have preservative. You would have your stabilizer, and in bracket, you would have what the stabilizer is. You would have your thickener, and in bracket, you have what the thickener is, vice versa, whichever one you want to put in brackets, right?
Yes.
But if you have 10 of them, you need to state all 10 of them with the class and the specific name. Does that answer your question?
Yes, so if I have, for example, the potassium benzoate and potassium sorbate, I would have the preservatives for each.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you, Cecilia.
Thank you.
Shelley V?
Okay, so in relation to labels that are suitable for overseas, and it is said that requirements. Are these requirements also provided at the library of the BSJ?
No, the Bureau of Standards Jamaica may not necessarily have details of those requirements. It's best if if the country has a High Commission or embassy, you can reach out to them. You can reach out to JAMPRO for some guidance, but you can also seek to find out through websites. The websites, if you're going into the US, FDA does provide some support. There's a Safe Food Canada, going into the UK. So all of these countries actually have their own spaces that monitor or regulate food that will enter their country, and you need to be guided. So if you have a particular person that you're going to be supplying, you can engage with them there. They find out what would be required, and you have that discussion.
Okay.
But what the presentation here, just to reiterate, our presentation here today is for operating within the local market. And each time you're going to go into another space where you're exporting, you have to check in with JAMPRO. Maybe JMEA can assist, the countries, embassies, high commissions can assist. And you do that legwork just to ensure that you know what is required so that your products do not go and sit on their ports because you failed to meet their requirements, not only label, but maybe ingredients that are in the product as well.
Okay, because I did a product at BSJ, and when I got the report, surprisingly to me, I noticed it said to be sold in Jamaica, and which is a spice, one ingredient. So I was kind of thinking, oh, really? I didn't know that was, definitely that. But the work that I did, I couldn't export it strictly as a one ingredient. So I'm appreciative of that information.
Perfect. So yeah, so the labeling or the unit that deals with labeling, the packaging, non-metallic and furniture branch, they can assess and approve labels for use within the Jamaica market. Now, the officers may be able to assist you or to guide you in terms of what you should be looking for. That's not part of our official remit per se, but they can assist and work with you. But companies would need to do that due diligence to help prepare themselves. All right. Thank you, Shelley V. Antoinette?
Thank you.
Recognizing Antoinette. Oh, please go ahead.
Hi. Just a clarification regarding the net quantity. I really just want to hear your thoughts as it relates to for liquids, why the word net. So I know the Bureau requires the word net, but just for clarity, why for a liquid you would need to put the word net, since in my view, if you have, say, a 750 ml on the package, there could be no other real meaning other than net, because ml is volume, and then the glass or the container is not measured in terms of volume, if you get what I'm trying to say. So I just wondered about why the word net is also necessary for a liquid per se.
That response will be provided by Mrs. Bailey.
So regarding your question, okay, so for non-food items, the standard clearly states that you need to put net contents before the actual measurement. That's for non-food items. However, for food items, and we're talking now about the JSCRS 5 2010, it did not specifically state that you need to put it before the measurement. So in essence, we like if you put it, but if you don't put it, it is still acceptable because as you stated, it can only be what is inside of the bottle. However, for products that are measured by weight, you understand that you would need to put the net weight. So yes, I'm agreeing with what you're saying.
So you're saying for food items, it does not have to go before the.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. For food items, it's not mandatory.
So
For volume, only for volume.
Oh, that's what I was gonna say. So for volume, okay. Okay.
All right. As I listen to the questions, just a reminder that the standards, relevant standards are available for use. Persons can come into our technical information center, or we call it the library. Once persons are going into business, you need to be guided by the standards. So just utilize the standards, seek the support of the different entities, agencies. If you come into the Bureau of Standards Jamaica, if it is that you're a startup, a new company, we have a client services program, and an officer there can assist. One of the librarians could assist, or we might draw on the services of inspectors from the National Compliance and Regulatory Authority who might be able to support, or any of our officers in the labeling branch. But persons do need to consult with the standard, use the standard as a guide, and then make the submissions of their labels. Are there any other questions? Just a reminder that we have placed a link to the evaluation in the chat, and we are asking for persons to take the time to complete, whether it's positive, negative, neutral. We want to hear from you, and we certainly thank you all for having participated today. So if there are no other questions, thank you, Lassell, for your valuable presentation on milk product labeling. With this final segment, we have now covered everything from general labeling rules to specific product categories, ensuring that you, our participants, have a comprehensive understanding of what is required for some aspects of food labeling, because of course, there are other products that we have not touched today. As I said, we want to hear from you. Your feedback is important. We have just dropped the evaluation link again in the session. We are asking you just to take the time to complete the evaluation so that it can help us improve our process and improve our presentation next time. What about key takeaways? Is there anything, and you could just drop that inside here, is there anything in our presentations today that you from today that you did not learn before? I'm going to invite you to just drop something that you never heard before, never knew before, or you were uncertain and you got some clarity on that today. I want to see you just drop some messages in the chat. We have taken quite, and we appreciate all the persons who shared questions. We look forward to hearing more of your questions when you come into the information center, come into our customer service, or when you're in touch with the packaging non-metallic. And all right, so are you able to query the result of an evaluation after feedback is received from the BSJ? And certainly, if you have questions, whenever you receive your report from the Bureau of Standards Jamaica, whether this is from the testing lab, it's a label assessment, there's always an opportunity for you. There's always an opportunity for you to speak with an officer from the laboratory to assist in understanding. Persons sometimes are confused with batch code and barcode. Could this be clarified? And certainly we will ask Mr. Tolo just to give a response on this.
All right, so they are distinctly different, and the batch code is a requirement while the barcode is optional. The batch code is a unique identifier.
So it is well within the right of the person making the product to use whatever batch code
Methodology or system they want to implement it. Some people will use the day, some people will use the shift, whatever unique code that helps them to identify a batch. And it is very important because at the point, if you should have an issue, you can narrow down, you can now be very pointed in terms of your approach when you have recalls, etc., etc. Barcode, on the other hand, are a totally different kind of setup. And what barcodes largely seek to do is to program in itself the pricing and product name. So it is more for the sale of the product. So when you go to the supermarket, they will have the bar scanners that they just put the product beside and it scan the barcode. So once the barcode is scanned, it has within it programmed the product name and the cost. So it's linked to the cashier system, and then they are able to get the prices without have to manually typing it in. So for one hand, batch code is a unique identifier, usually put on by the person making the product to identify the batch of the product that they made. Barcode, it's more for the commercial side of things, where it has within it programmed the pricing and the product name for use in actual trade. So I'm not sure if that helps to make it a little bit clearer.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Tolo. I see some additional questions coming in the chat. So we just spoke about batch code and barcode. Again, the barcode also assists you with inventory, it assists the companies with inventory. That's a different thing, but what is required is your batch code to assist you in monitoring if you should have any problems, a recall if necessary, you know which products would need to be impacted or were impacted. Somebody has asked, Anikia Barrows has asked, I grow my own herbs with no fertilizer and thought this qualifies me automatically to say they are 100 organic or non-GMO. For now, different persons across the world have different understanding and concepts of what is organic. In Jamaica, there is a process of certifying. There are standards that speak to organic products, and there is a entity, the National Certification Body of Jamaica, that provides certification in relation to organic products. You can be in touch with the NCBJ. We will drop the contact information for the NCBJ in the chat. It's NCBJ. It's info@ncbj.org.jm. I think info@ncbj.org.jm. You can reach out to them and someone there can provide some clarity and can share with you about the program. So we can't just say we're not using fertilizer, or we're just using this kind of product, and based on this, all of our product is organic. Again, the standard guides in determining what is organic. All right. About branding, Kwesi has a question. Let me see if I can get this question up. Not able to see all of this question from Kwesi, but it's a question about branding. To clarify, the brand has to have the... Can somebody see the full question? All right. Could you just read the question and
about branding? To classify the brand has to have the product in its selling. It is selling on the label, or it is wrong. Correct? Example: I jerk versus jerk chicken.
All right. So the brand is the name of the company that is putting out this product on the market. I'm not quite, I'm not quite sure, Kwesi, what you might be specifically asking. So you might want to clarify, or if once the session is done, you reach out to the Bureau directly and speak to one of our officers in the packaging, non-metallic, and furniture branch, and they could assist the process. So you would need to identify what kind of product. The name of the product needs to be there, the popular name of the product, and then your brand is there. So I'm not quite sure. So for additional clarification, Kwesi, please reach out to Lassell Tolo here at the Bureau of Standards Jamaica. He'll be prepared to assist you in this regard. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you very much for your participation today. We appreciate the significant numbers of you who showed up this morning to participate, and presenters Karumi Huey, Paulette Bailey, Matthew Lee, and Lessa for their and engagement. The Bureau of Standards Jamaica stages these activities frequently, and between April to June of next year, in fact, as early as April 9, there'll be another presentation that will be speaking to packaging, and this is being presented by the Quality Institute as we look at food safety initiatives. Between now and June 7, which is World Food Safety Day, the Bureau of Standards Jamaica will be staging and sharing information to assist persons in appreciating the benefit of World Food Safety Day. So I see information having just been presented by someone, but yes, the Bureau of Standards Jamaica, again, available to respond to your questions. Also, the NCBJ for matters of organic certification. And should you have questions about monitoring or, just those composite things that you may want to ensure with you can be in touch with the National Compliance and Regulatory Authority. All of these entities together support you in your efforts to ensure that you are in compliance. Ladies and gentlemen, again, we thank you for participating. We invite you to complete the evaluation, and the presentation will be uploaded to the BSJ's website. We will share with you later today or by tomorrow morning the link to the space on the website where you can access the presentation as is. Again, thank you for your participation. Have a great afternoon.